In the past few days, the Chinese Communist Party's spy balloon incident has sparked a major uproar in the United States. The balloon, which had been floating over the US for 4 days, along with the continued coverage of mainstream media in the US, demonstrated to the American public what the China threat theory was all about. In the afternoon of February 4, the stray balloon was finally shot down by the US military over the Atlantic Ocean. The balloon incident has caused ripples in U.S. China relations, leading to the cancellation of Secretary of State Blinken's visit to China on February 5th. This has diminished the prospects of a thaw in U.S. China diplomatic relations and could have far-reaching impacts on the relationship between the two nations. The inconsistent statements and inadequate handling by the Chinese Communist Party in this controversy have exposed its true nature and heightened global awareness of its threat to the world. We will first briefly review the events. On February 1st, the United States Montana residents photographed a high-altitude balloon. On February 2nd, senior U.S. defense officials confirmed that this is a spy balloon from China, and the news quickly hit the headlines of major media, triggering widespread public concern. It was then revealed that the balloon entered U.S. airspace in Alaska on January 28th, entered Canadian airspace on January 30th, and then re-entered U.S. airspace in northern Idaho on January 31st. The White House initially chose to keep the incident under wraps, only revealing it to the public after it was exposed by the media. On February 3rd, U.S. Secretary of State Blinken spoke to Wang Yi, CCP's director of the Office of the Central Foreign Affairs Commission, and stated that the presence of a surveillance balloon is a violation of U.S. sovereignty, a violation of international law, and it was very important that U.S. make clear to China that, again, this is an unacceptable as well as irresponsible action. He then chose to delay his planned visit to Beijing, which was scheduled on February 5th. On the evening of February 3rd, the Pentagon reported that a second communist spy balloon had been sighted over Latin America and that there may be a third balloon active in close proximity to the US, but did not provide specific on its locations. On February 6, Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesman Mao Ning admitted that the second unnamed airship also came from China and claimed that it was a civilian in nature used for a flight test. At 2:39 p.m. on February 4th, a U.S. Air Force F-22 fighter jet shot down a balloon by firing an AIM-9X Rattlesnake missile at an altitude of about 17,700 meters. Let's examine the reaction from the Chinese side. Mao Ning, a spokesperson for the Chinese Foreign Ministry, stated on February 3rd that Beijing was in the process of verifying the situation and that speculation and sensationalism would not contribute to a proper resolution of this issue. A report issued by the CCP's official mouthpiece, the Global Times, on February 3rd also quoted a number of Chinese experts as questioning the incident, saying it was nonsense and that the US might have directed the incident itself to defame China, suggesting that the US shot it down before blaming other countries. However, on the evening of February 3rd, the Chinese Foreign Ministry issued a statement saying that the Chinese civilian researched unmanned airship had recently deviated from its intended course due to the effects of the western winds, and that China regrets that the airship was misdirected into the United States due to force majeure. After the CCP admitted that the balloon did come from China, the report from Huanqiu can still be found online, but displays error 404 if you click into it. The article can still be found in other Chinese media. Regarding the U.S. announcement to postpone Blinken's visit to China, the spokesperson of the Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs said, in fact, neither China nor the U.S. has announced any visits. The U.S. side announcement is its own business and we respect it. But according to the Chinese official media report on January 17, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs spokesman Wang Wenbin said that Australia welcomes U.S. Secretary of State Blinken's visit to China and the two countries are discussing the specific arrangements. A few hours after the U.S. military shot down the balloon, the Chinese Foreign Ministry issued a statement on the morning of February 5th local time, expressing strong dissatisfaction with the US shooting down its spy balloon. The recovery of the balloon wreckage is still underway. According to multiple media sources, the platform supporting the balloon is approximately the size of 3 buses and is equipped with solar panels, cameras, radar, sensors, and various communication equipment. It is estimated to weigh several thousand pounds.
So I can confirm that the Department of Defense was tracking a high-altitude object over Alaska airspace in the last 24 hours. The object was flying at an altitude of 40,000 feet and posed a reasonable threat to the safety of civilian flight. Out of an abundance of caution and at the recommendation of the Pentagon, President Biden ordered the military to down the object.
Simultaneously, details about the manufacture of the spy balloon and the utilization of balloons by the Chinese Communist Party's military have also come to light. The company that produced the balloon was China Zhuzhou Rubber Research and Design Institute Co., Ltd. The company's website shows the company profile saying that it is the designated research institution for all kinds of meteorological balloons for the CCP's People's Liberation Army troops, and has a weaponry scientific research and production license, as well as a weapon equipment research and production second-level confidential qualification certificate. It states that it is the only professional research institution in the latex industry in China. The company's military support products were utilized in the Shenzhou No. 5 spacecraft and received commendation from the General Armaments Department of the People's Liberation Army. Given this information, we can see that this is a military company. Interestingly, one day after famous Chinese author and human rights activist Jennifer Zhen tweeted this news, the company deleted all contents on its website, including the company profile and even product information. Fortunately, Ms. Zhen made a backup on her own personal website and has also made an English translation of the relevant information for interested viewers. Further, Chinese media reports that the Zhuzhou Rubber Research and Design Institute Co., Ltd. has been developing weather balloons since 2003. The Chinese Communist Party claimed that the shot-down balloon was a civilian facility used for meteorological research. To back up this claim, Zhang Guotai, head of China Meteorological Administration, was sacked on February 3rd, deliberately creating the impression that he is accepting responsibility for the balloon incident. However, he had already taken on the role of Party Secretary of the Gansu People's Political Consultative Conference, CPPCC, on January 11th. Furthermore, under the Chinese Communist Party's political system, the China Meteorological Administration is not a corporate entity, but rather a public institution under the State Council that is responsible for the administration of meteorological work in the country. Additionally, by national security law, all enterprises, whether public or private, must fulfill national security duties. Therefore, even if the balloon did belong to the Meteorological Administration, it is still highly possible for it to be used for military reconnaissance. The use of civilian facilities for military missions has long existed. We had previously reported that China had used trawlers as armed fishing militias in the South China Sea and the Taiwan Strait to carry out missions that the army has difficulties completing. Now, U.S. media has also claimed that the Chinese Communist Party have been using civilian trawlers for military purpose for decades. There is evidence that in 2015, Xi Jinping proposed a national strategy for civil-military integration, advocating for the use of civilian infrastructure, construction, and logistics for military purposes. The key technologies involved in the development of this strategy include quantum computing, big data, semiconductors, 5G, advanced nuclear technology, aerospace technology, and artificial intelligence. Huawei and Xiaomi are typical examples of civil-military integration. Since 2011, Huawei has been rejected by many countries who have accused the company of carrying out espionage activities on behalf of the Chinese Communist Party. Chinese companies have been acquiring agricultural land in the US for a number of years. The close proximity of these lands to sensitive US military bases have raised heightened concerns about US national security, suggesting that the Chinese Communist Party may be using it to cover off private entities for military espionage. An ultra-nationalist Chinese website, Guancha, published an article on February 28, 2022, acknowledging the discovery of military balloons over Taiwan and admitting that military balloons are not just a fabrication. At the Zhuhua Air Show 2021, the China Aviation Industry, China Electronics Technology Group Corporation, and China Aerospace Science and Industry Corporation demonstrated several high-altitude tethered balloons that can carry radar optical detection equipment. According to media reports, a senior U.S. defense official has also pointed out that China has a fleet of spy balloons, some of which have been spotted in the skies of 5 continents including East Asia, South Asia, Europe, etc. He said that these spy balloons had the purpose of gathering intelligence and to trespass into other countries under the direction of the Chinese People's Liberation Army. These operations violate the sovereignty of other countries as well. After the U.S. Army shot down the balloon on February 5th, a spokesman for the Chinese Ministry of Defense, Tan Kefei, protested the action and emphasized that China reserves the right to take necessary measures to handle similar situations. Some online criticized, saying, if it was truly a civilian balloon, why is the Ministry of Defense condemning the action? Is it because you are harboring intentions that can't bear daylight? From all the information above, it appears that this balloon isn't a civilian weather monitoring device as claimed by the Chinese official. A U.S. official has already previously stated that this is a surveillance balloon by China, flying over the U.S. in the vicinity of many potentially sensitive sites. Now, this balloon has carried surveillance equipment not used in standard meteorological activities or civilian research. China was able to actively manipulate the balloons to fly over specific locations, as evidenced by the balloon's flight patterns, small engines, and propellers. Now let's analyze the impact of this controversy in the U.S.-China relationship. Firstly, the presence of the balloon over a sensitive U.S. military site is perceived as a serious provocation to the United States. The Pentagon also described the Chinese balloon as a clear violation of U.S. sovereignty and an unacceptable breach. As a result, Secretary of State John Blinken cancelled his planned visit to China on February 5th. This was to have been Blinken's first trip to China since taking office and would have been the highest-ranking official visit to China since the Biden administration assumed power 2 years prior. The mission of Blinken's visit was to ease the sharp decline in relations between the US and China caused by trade disputes and the Taiwan Strait crisis, and possibly also to meet China's President Xi Jinping. The Communist Party, especially Xi Jinping, in the face of internal and external pressure, is keen to strengthen interactions and improve relations with the US, and to address the US-led export control of semiconductor to China. To coincide the Blinken's visit to China, the People's Daily changed their usual anti-American stance and published 3 consecutive articles dating February 1st, advocating the win-win cooperation between China and the US in an attempt to ease Sino-US tension. According to some analysts, as long as Blinken set foot on China's soil, the communist regime would have been able to declare a public victory, something that the Beijing government, grappling with numerous dire domestic and international crises, was desperately seeking. These plans have now been thwarted, leading to a significant diplomatic crisis and further escalating the already tense relationship between the United States and China. Additionally, this balloon incident has placed the Biden administration under intense pressure from American public opinion and the Republican Party, which is likely to lead to a heightened confrontation with the Chinese Communist Party. This may result in limited opportunities for negotiation on critical issues such as the Taiwan Strait and technology controls. According to Chinese historian and commentator professional Zhang Tianliang, the Chinese Communist Party's habit of lying and backtracking on their statement has exposed the truth about the threat they pose to the world. As a result, the party's effort to improve relations with the West and resolve their economic difficulties are at risk of failure. Professor Zhang also emphasized that the balloon incident has become equivalent to a de facto military conflict between China and the US, putting countries in a difficult position to take sides. European nations, for instance, are gradually distancing themselves from the Chinese Communist Party due to a loss of trust and the high risk of supporting China and potentially losing assets if the US-China conflict escalates and sanctions are imposed. This delicate situation could further deteriorate the already struggling Chinese economy.